everyone. Welcome to another edition of Deliberately Intentional with me, your host, Remy Fagbon. Today's episode is leading with love or with fear. Your family, your marriage, everything. Which one do you do? I've always believed that love is the best way. A lot of people think that fear is the best way. You got to beat somebody into submission, or you've got to put the fear of God in them. No. But again, by the end of this episode, I think I would love to hear what everyone thinks in regarding this topic. But which one are you using? I've always felt that my upbringing was not one that came with love. And my dad used fear more than anything else. They felt like if you beat the person into submission or they feared you, they would do whatever you wanted them to do. But you know what fear gives? Rebellion. Well, you will rebel at a certain point. It got to a point that I was like, yeah, okay, so you're going to beat me. It doesn't really make a difference. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. Didn't stop me from running away. It didn't stop me from doing everything the opposite of what it is that he wanted me to do. Fear only goes but yay far. I watched Kelly Rowland's movie, Mea Culpa, this weekend. And there was a line there that the guy said, you know, my brother told me that I should have beaten you to the point whereby you were submissive. And I'm like, what makes you think that you need to beat her into submission? Why? She would simply love you and give you absolutely everything that you want. So let's talk about that a little bit. Love. When you're raising your child, whether you like it or not, you do have a choice. You can keep beating them thinking that that's what's going to make them act right. And that's honestly what a lot of people do. But you forget that there's still another tool, one that they never outgrow, one that is inexhaustible, really, and that's love. Have you tried talking to your child? There is an intentional way to go about doing all of this, but have you tried talking to your child? The same thing works with your spouse. Have you tried talking to your spouse? Making sure that your default is a loving environment. You see, the thing with love is that no matter what, you will never feel too much love. Love is inexhaustible, as I've said before. You can use love to guide. And I have the perfect example of one that I did with my son, which one of my half-sisters still says today that she never forgot. My son and I had gone to Nigeria, and I had one little rule that my mom had given me too when I was younger, and it was that before you eat anything, you needed to tell me first, because, you know, back then people could just give you anything. And so I had gone somewhere and I'd come back literally to the bathroom and come back, and he was drinking a Coke. We don't drink Coke. So he was just not a sugar. I was very particular about his sugar and soda intake, and he was drinking a Coke. And I just looked at him and I said, did you ask for permission? And immediately I said that, he started crying, and he didn't stop crying. I just said that, did you ask for permission? And I went to sit down, and my sister, the amount of tears that he shed would have been easier if I had beaten him, because he would have been, probably would have had a better impact. And they all kept looking at me like, well, what did you do? I said, I didn't do anything. I just looked at him and I said, did you ask for permission? And that's because I had always raised him with love. Me being disappointed was a big deal for him. Me not being happy, I could just turn, it could be a frown, but that was also because I made his default setting, the way that our home was a happy one. And so if I even had a frown, or if I looked a certain way, he would know that, okay, what is it? I need to check myself. And I didn't use that tool lightly. I took it with utter seriousness. That's the kind of intentional parent that I was, because I never wanted a situation whereby I needed to beat you to get my point across. That was what was done with me. The point doesn't get across at all. Half of the things that I was beaten for were irrelevant, if I'm being 100% honest. So at a certain point in time, I'd be like, yeah, I already know you're going to do this. But it expired. I still would do whatever I thought I needed to do, regardless of whether I was going to be beaten or not. But you know what? That disappointment, or that feeling of like, you know what, I don't want to disappoint, it goes a very long way. He cried and cried for probably an hour. And people kept saying to me, my sisters and everybody that was around, like, that, what did you do? That have you? I'm like, no, I didn't. I just told him that I was disappointed. And I was disappointed in the fact that we had this rule. We talked about it multiple times before we even gone on that trip to Nigeria, and he broke the rule. And he knew all the good things that comes when mom is happy, because I was very good about painting a picture for him. And so he would know that if he did certain things, he was always going to be rewarded. And yes, it created a reward system. Like, okay, if I worked hard, I would get this. If I did this, I would do that. But after a while, the rewards fell away, and it just became his default setting. Like, okay, this is the way I behave all the time. I am this individual that is used to doing things the right way. He still had a voice because I always listened to the things that he wanted to do, but he also knew that there was a right way to do almost everything that he wanted to do. And I took that, and I also do the same thing in my marriage. My marriage is a happy place. So our default setting is happy. Now, if there's something that comes up, that's how you tend to know that there's a little ripple. There'll be a level of quietness that, hey, you would know. I mean, only the people that are really close to it, but my son can always tell when we're not on each other's good books, because there's that little bit of, there's a little off. It's never fear. It's just like, okay, they're not connecting or talking the way they normally would. So everyone still gets a moment to say their piece, but we say it from a place of love. And maybe that little gap in between is the little part that allows people, or the people that are close to us, mainly my son, to see that something's a little off here. But we've never used fear. You never have to use fear where love exists. The fear may eventually come up, needing that, okay, something is going to change in my dynamic with my mom or with my spouse because of something I've done. You would want to naturally avoid that. Who wants to rock a very safe, happy, smooth sailing boat? Nobody does. Not really. Now, the things that you force a person to do because they fear you doesn't mean that they actually wanted to do it. And that's the biggest difference between love and fear. Fear, when you're ruling or you're leading your family with that, means that you force the person to do what you wanted them to do. Love will make them want to do what it is that you want them to do. And that's more powerful, more long lasting. When my son looks back on the things that I've taught him and how I raised him over the years, and he'll be in the studio one of these days to talk about it, he doesn't see it negatively for a reason. And that's because none of it was done to his detriment. He's older now, and he can look back on it and say like, okay, I get why mom said to do certain things. Same thing with my husband. I don't want anyone to feel like they're around me and they're forced to do anything out of fear. It should be because it's also working for you too. It's something you want to do as well. Those are the key proponents of ruling, leading, nurturing with love. Fear will only make people hate you after a certain amount of time, because that resentment will slowly but surely build up. Those voice that you didn't allow them to have will start to gather momentum, and at some point they will break away from you and they will not turn back. That's not something that I've ever wanted to have for my son. I want to be involved in his life, but I want him to want me to be there. I want my spouse to want me to be involved in the things that he's doing. I don't want it to be out of fear. And that's what makes the biggest difference. A family that's being built with love will continue to have children that are raised with love, and you will continue to go out in the world and emanate this love. I'm not saying be stupid. That's a big difference. But also make sure that you're intentional with everything you do. But love goes so much further than fear does. How do we instill fear? Most people, it's by beating. But you don't need to use beating to raise a child, or to, as they say, to make a wife submit, or a husband to become submissive or to listen to what you're saying. It means that you're juvenile if you have to beat somebody to get them. If you have to smack somebody to get your point across, then there's something wrong with you too. So instead of leading with fear, why not try to find a better way to communicate? I know that a lot of people don't have these tools, and that's what people like me are here for. We can teach you how to rule, lead, nurture your family into a better way. Because the only way that people want to be around you and stay with you in order to build a connection is when they have love for you. Don't kill the love that a person has for you with fear. Because yes, they all both go hand in hand, but how you handle it makes the biggest difference in the world. In conclusion, I lead with love. I push love more than anything else. I'm still a very strict parent. My method of punishment when my son was little was I would make him write cursive. I would make him write 100 times on a piece of paper. He did not want to have to do that. So of course he behaved right. I don't mean that you should leave your kid to just do whatever just because you're saying you want to lead with love. There still needs to be a structure in place. There still needs to be a way to correct behavior that pops up because kids are kids. And you have to find a way that nurtures your child and is intentional in raising your child with love. The intentional parent deals with love. Thank you guys for another amazing episode of Deliberately Intentional. I look forward to seeing you all next week, same place, same time. I hope you're following. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Bye, everyone.